Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com. We are looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man, and back with me again, Kyle Olson from Legible Scrawl. Hey,
glad to still be around. We're finally getting to see Iron Man in all his glory.
This is, you picked a good week.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good week to have some fun conversations. We are, of course, looking at minute 63 of Iron Man. On today's show, the minute starts with the wrap-up of the Mark II's check on its control surfaces, and it ends with Iron Man eyeballing the Ferris wheel on the Santa Monica Pier. Oh boy, this is juicy stuff. This is a great minute.
That's right. Yeah. So as the minute starts, there he is, shiny, chrome, glowing eyes. His arc reactor glowing, like in the middle of his. So in the background, you can see all of his, all the toys and stuff we've seen over there. But like, there's the man himself.
I love that. This is. It's just so funny to me that he goes through this big test, and Jarvis is like, "Okay, good, that's good, powering down."
Like, well, you got all dressed up,
right? All dressed up with nowhere to go.
It's all working. So, all right, now put it back in the box. Like, whoa, buddy.
It's. I think it says a lot about Jarvis and Tony and the personalities. Well, I mean, personalities, I guess, of the two of them, but largely Jarvis is a computer program that he created. But still, it's just very funny to see how they.
Yeah, just that chiding tone that, like, when like Jarvis starts saying like, Jarvis, like, I did not rivet myself into this thing just so we could run checks. Paul Bettany always underplays what he did in these first movies, but I think he was a phenomenal choice, and I think he really finds the exact right tone for Jarvis, because he could be a nag and he also could be a robot, and he finds something in the middle where he definitely has a personality, but he still will go along with things, but still wants to advise caution, but not, try and shut everything down, like, because theoretically he could.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think he created that. His joke is always that he shows up and everybody else shoots and all these things as explosions. He shows up in his pajamas and works for a day.
Well, that's what he said about this one, which was great. Is he didn't even know what the movie was. He didn't read the script. He just had these lines, and he just kind of went in and read them. Got paid a ton of money and got to go take a vacation with his wife. He's like, this was great.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what it was really doing. But man, they did really luck out, because by the time they got around to actually wanting to do more with him, they actually had luckily cast a great actor to come on board and actually be well integrated into the franchise.
Yeah, little did he know he'd go from showing up in his pajamas to wearing probably the most complicated suit that they had come up with so far in terms of makeup and all the things he had to put on.
Right. Although I think, we'll get to that eventually, but I think largely a lot of that is just kind of CG with dots and things.
True.
It's amazing what they do these days.
Yeah, but this is where it all started.
This really is. This is great watching Tony just get so excited. He's such a little eager beaver here. He's like, I got to take it out. I can't just sit down.
You can't expect me not to take a joyride.
And that's something I love about Tony. He goes from this fairly rough test flight over his cars and around his workshop. He manages to do it without destroying anything or hurting himself finally. And that is cue for him to say, okay, I'm going to put the suit on and I'm going to go fly around the city now. Because I'm there. It's so funny that this is just how his mind works.
Run before you can walk. Yeah, and that sort of like scream of terror into whoop of joy. It's such a great thing.
Exactly. You can only imagine, like, flying the way that he does. I mean, you get that great shot of him as he's looking and making this decision, and all of the information starts popping up on the screen, and you just see.
Yeah, we talked a lot about augmented reality in the last episode, and so you get to see all the planes overhead and the weather conditions going on outside.
And you see as he's and it's interesting, because I guess we should talk about the HUD first before we really get into the whole exterior flight. You see, I love how everything starts powering down, and you get the aborted, or the system shut down complete, and then all of a sudden aborted as all the information starts popping up again, and you get so the first thing that's going to pop up over on actually, I should say before it goes into shutdown mode, on the left, you have the suit diagnostics over on the very far left. And that shows like a little picture of his body, of the Iron Man suit in the middle. And then over on the right, it's data analytics popping up. And then the circle that pops up on the right, that's the radar. And it's a 3-layer radar that pops up. There's a water layer, a land layer, and an air layer. So you've got 3 layers of that. And that one is the one where if you look at it, you can kind of tell that it's the radar because it looks like the California, like the Malibu coast, like right along the line there. So that's the radar. And then on the very bottom, you have 5 dock icons that are down at the very bottom. And there's targeting, radar, suit diagnostics, power, and flight. And so those are the 5 little toggle things at the bottom. And the way that I guess they determined that makes the most sense for Tony to operate this is all with his eyes and what he's looking at. So when he looks at something, if it's a long enough look, it's a trigger for that thing to open up. And it'll pop up. And then as he continues looking at it, he can do more inside of it. Or if he's done with it, he'll just look at something else and it'll fade back down into the bottom. It's really interesting the way that they came up with all that. And then over on the right again, as the planes start popping up, this is a different circle that shows up, and that's actually a weather widget that gives kind of the weather of the area. And then as we already gathered, the air traffic control information and the plane trackers all pop up. And that, I guess we would say that's the alpha for this particular minute that we're looking at here.
Yeah, because we're about to go up, and it's a great transition too, because you like when you're saying we're looking at Tony's face and seeing this, and then they flip it, and so then now we're seeing what he's seeing. So we're seeing all the same elements are there, but now we see it from his point of view, where it's all laid out in front of him, as opposed to sort of just circles and dots as we're looking at him.
Yeah, it's almost like now we're seeing it through his eyes, which is really cool, because you also see how you can see the coastline, how it's laid out, looking out past his house. I like that as it tilts down, it lands on his Audi, and you actually get that information about the Audi R8, which is interesting because it's actually a 2010 Audi R8,
right?
And this movie came out in 2008, so an interesting little. I guess that he bought it a very early model. For, as it says, the price, $159,000.
That's right. So was that what he paid for it? Is that what he could get for it? I don't know. But yeah, it's just his price.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, what's the blue book?
Right. Jarvis says Kelly Blue Book already loaded up, so just in case.
So it's really interesting. And then you can see as we're looking at him, it transitions into flight mode. The little button on the bottom starts flashing as he's talking. And that's another thing that's interesting is they talk about how they're determining how things are getting turned on. And they already mentioned like the eyes. And I guess there's a word that they used for the way that when he's turning things on with his eyes, I can't remember what it is. Very scientific-y sort of term. But then also sometimes he's talking. In this particular case, it's reacting to the fact that he's talking about, let's take it out for a flight. And so it opens up the flight mode window. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, then we get to where he's going to now in the full suit, take off and not hopefully crash into anything. So we get to see the Iron Man pose with his repulsors out flaring from both sides and on his boots too.
So it's interesting in the script. So he takes it out in the script. It says he says we should take this outside. Jarvis says, I must strongly caution against that. There are terabytes of calculations still needed. Tony says, we'll do them in flight. Then Jarvis says, sir, the suit has not even passed a basic wind tunnel test. And then Tony says, that's why you're coming with me. And then this was actually interesting. So he fires up his boots and gauntlets. He hovers floating around along the workshop's driveway. Then Jarvis says, I suggest you allow me to employ Directive 4. Tony, never interrupt me while I'm with a beautiful woman? Jarvis, that's... Jarvis, that's Directive 6. Directive 4, use any and all means to protect your life should you be incapable of doing so. And then Tony says, whatever floats you, Jarvis. And then he takes off. I'm like, okay, so Jarvis isn't listening very well. And Tony is just like completely ignoring these directives that he set up.
That's interesting. So they're almost a little bit of Asimov's rules of robotics there.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I can say of some of the script pieces you've read, I was sort of like, oh, that was kind of clunky. Like, I'm glad they did it, but like, that's pretty funny. Like, that's a nice exchange.
It's an interesting element. But I actually brought this up because something that I thought was worth mentioning is they talk about his pose. And they actually said as he flies out and he's spinning and then he finally stabilizes himself. It says Tony tucks his arms and legs tight, thrusts his chest, eventually finding the Delta pose, and it's underlined. And suddenly he's in control. And so I guess that's what we're calling it, the Delta pose, when he's flying and he's got his hands out at his sides and his
head
feet
up, and then arms down and legs back, and the Delta pose.
So there it is. But this is just fantastic.
Yeah,
watching him fly around.
Yeah, exactly. And then the whoop of joy, and also I don't know if it was something that the ILM guys put in, or if it was originally in the script ever. But I love the fact that he takes the corner wide and he scrapes against it. Like if you can see at about, I'm trying to think, about 32 seconds or so, like as he's going, there's just like he actually scrapes and you can see sparks go as he like goes against the concrete wall before he finally goes up. I just love that.
That is great. Yeah, he's still learning. Well, this we've seen him make a mess of things before, so it's not his first time.
And probably the damage to the wall is still there up until Iron Man 3. But oh well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, God, he really does like grind his body up against the wall right there.
It really does. It's like some nice sparks they add in there too. Like we were talking about the sparks from the first minute there.
Right.
And then just this complete elation of joy. This is the moment too where it's just like that feeling of flight. Like we're with Tony in this too, of like he's actually doing it. He's actually flying.
Yeah. This is like Spider-Man when you get to see finally Peter Parker jump off a building and start swinging with his webs and that woohoo, that complete joy. And they do a great job. And, Robert Downey Jr., he ends up in these films having to do a lot of acting with the camera, like literally like right on top of his face. Yeah, he doesn't get to really be a fully expressive person. It's just all about locking your face down and just acting with your face in that particular space. And you kind of lose track of that because you're just kind of caught up in the moment of watching him. And we know we're like in the helmet watching as he does this, but you forget about what the actor actually has to go through. And I can only imagine, but he does, like, watching how joyful he is. It's a thrill to see it come to life like this.
Oh yeah. This is that Superman's first flight. This is Iron Man. This is Spider-Man's first swing. This goes right up there within some of the best moments of comic book things where you just get that joy of like flight, like the dream.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Jon Favreau talked about this sequence. A lot of it came to him as he was driving along the Pacific Coast Highway. So as he was like going along, looking out at sort of other things that are there, like, and the Ferris wheel being one of them as he was driving along the way, thought he started imagining that in his head of like him, Iron Man, leaving his house and then seeing all these things along the way, sort of like this is his own sort of driving up the coast, but doing it from the water in the air.
Right, doing a very different version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's fun, and he does a great job at just bringing it to life. And I think that actually is an interesting aspect of it as you see him kind of flying. I mean, it's night, so it's dark. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get a good sense of where we are coast-wise, but you can pinpoint kind of the Malibu, kind of that coast where his house is up on that on that bluff there on Doom Point. As he approaches Santa Monica, and you can kind of see way off in the distance. If you have any familiarity with LA, you can see the pier sticking out, and it's just I mean, again, it is hard to pinpoint anything too specific until you get to Santa Monica, but it does give you that sense that you're up above in open space, flying out over the ocean over all this stuff.
Yeah, and that you can see also the HUD is then popping up too, and is popping all the things. So we see the speed across the top. He's going at Mach 0.28. And then it spots the Ferris wheel and gives data on that.
Right.
Jarvis is taking a look around.
Yeah, it's really kind of cool to see when he's flying. He gets up to about Mach 0.3, and that's actually about 230 miles an hour.
Wow.
So he's moving. He's really moving.
And this could have been the first time that Jarvis has ever left the house.
Very well.
At this point, Jarvis is a house AI.
That's a good point, because we've never really been with Tony at work, and so we don't really know if he's got like a work Jarvis, another one. But but it doesn't seem that way. It doesn't seem like Jarvis is anywhere other than the house. It's an interesting point. Yeah.
And now,
you think that Jarvis would be like also saying, "Woo!"
Yeah,
this is awesome.
I'm having a ball.
No, it's such a great minute, and just all the different things that you get to see as he's like the stuff on the screen, and just kind of that sheer joy. I mean, I think that's what makes this moment work so well, is you really just feel like you're out there flying with Tony as he's kind of coasting above the ocean and out over the city. It's just invigorating.
Yeah, I mean that's I remember hearing Roger Ebert saying he was watching the original Star Wars, so Star Wars: A New Hope, and he said there's a scene where they're walking. The guys are in disguise and they're walking with Chewbacca, and Chewbacca is manacled, and they're taking him. They're pretending to escort him to the prison, and a small droid rolls up. I mean, everybody who's listening to this knows what I'm talking about, but this is just his interpretation. This droid rolls up. Chewbacca screams at it. The droid runs away. He said the fact that George Lucas took a minute out of this big sci-fi epic to have this little gag, that was the moment I knew this movie is going to be a monster hit. Because the confidence it takes to just like, you know what? I'm going to do it like this little remote control Wookiee gag thing in the middle of this big space epic. And I see the same thing. And actually, Iron Man almost is built on those kind of things because it's built on these moments. And the fact that they'll let this moment be, as opposed to just like he flies up, he lands, now I'm Iron Man. It's like, no, he takes this time to like really enjoy the, and obviously we're talking about, a course of 2 minutes, but in the course of 100-minute film, every minute, especially this, is millions of dollars on the line. You can't, we've seen the ones that are just cut to the inch of their life because they're terrified of this. But this is the confidence of a seasoned filmmaker of just like, this is a moment that we can let stretch and just let people enjoy it.
Well, and to a certain extent, I mean, I guess I would almost say that it's like this is filling in for an action scene, because I mean, it's a superhero movie. We've got our fight scenes and everything, but we haven't had anything since he escaped the cave, and so it's been a good chunk of time, and it'll be another chunk of time before we actually get our next action scene. So you can see why they may have wanted to kind of amp this up a little bit with kind of some action moments, just to give it some keep that sense of life going in the film.
Right. And a lesser or a less confident person would say, and that's when he finds someone being mugged.
Right.
And suddenly Iron Man drops from the sky and give me the purse, lady. And suddenly Iron Man drops from the sky. Hold on there, citizen.
Oh, thank God they didn't go there.
Right. But but you can see it, right? You can be like, totally. What's this, some kind of erector set? I mean, it's so easily could have gone so terribly wrong.
Yeah, it really could have. I mean, not too far from now, we're going to be over the city in the streets. And he could easily have seen a car chase with a robber.
Exactly. Sir, I'm picking up police chatter. There's a hit and run driver. And we'll stop him, Jarvis. Yeah.
Wow. I never thought about that, but that could have gone down a very stereotypical road. Yeah,
I'm a writer. I think in cliches.
I think in cliches. There you go. Just another couple notes. I love when he first takes off out of the house, and it's just like this rocket like streaming out of the roof is kind of what it looks like. Yeah. But then it cuts to the HUD, and you're looking at his face, and you see the markings of the ground level. And it's just like spinning in circles. It's like
it's dropping away so fast.
Right. And then it cuts to that fantastic shot where the camera's almost like right over his shoulder, and you're looking back, and those fantastic, like the flaps on his back as they're moving to kind of counterbalance with his movements through the air. but you get just a great sense of how this thing works. And you can see the house like spiraling away down below before he stabilizes himself and figures things out.
It's that space shuttle shot, like down the length of the rocket down to you see the bottom. Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is just one of those minutes where you got all sorts of money shots, because then he kind of, once he straightens himself out and gets into that delta pose, you get that great shot after you get the horizon lock, but it's that curve as he's flying out of the ocean, and he just kind of curves toward you and flies up toward you. And you just see that great, it's Iron Man flying through the sky. You're like, damn, that is it right there, man. Yeah. That's our superhero.
That's right. That's our guy.
That is good. That's awesome.
Yeah, this is the thing that Marvel has done extremely well. And of course, like, if you listen to the Road to Infinity podcast, I've said this a dozen times. But it's the alchemy that Marvel does, of just a strange mix of all of these things that somehow it works.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, you watch a Batman movie, you're waiting for Batman, like, get Bruce off the screen. But Tony is Tony all the way through. Like, if he's in the armor, he's out of the armor. He's the interesting character. It's not about the powers. It's not about the suit.
Yeah.
Because we're with Tony, because we've been with Tony this whole time. So we're with Tony in the suit. Like, yes, you get to see Iron Man, but it's still like Iron Man and Tony are the same one. That's like, as we will find out at the end of the movie. But it's that stuff that has really made the MCU sing, is that they make you fall in love with the person, not the powers.
Yeah, absolutely right. They do such a great job of creating interesting characters that we can really identify with and feel like, we are a little bit of them or them as we're watching these films.
Yeah, because we're also feeling what Tony is feeling at this point too, because we're all woohooing in our seats too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. A random question that I thought of as I was reading through some of these science people having these conversations about Tony and flying and everything. How well do you think it actually works to fly with your propulsion coming out of your feet? Because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's how jets do it and everything, but I feel like when you're a human body and you bend and you flex, I feel like, if you accidentally bend a little bit at your waist, that's going to all of a sudden start like push you down into a nosedive and everything. And I know maybe I'm overthinking the logic of a superhero and how he flies, but
well, yeah, there's always that. But one little hip twitch and suddenly you're going in a whole new direction too. Plus if you got thrust coming from both feet, the idea that you'd have the strength to put your feet together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that's where I always, like, my wife made this point when I was watching the minute. She's like, wow, he got good at flying really fast. Right. And I was like, well, true. However, he does have Jarvis. So that's my sort of my no prize would be that he has Jarvis with him to, like, sort of control the, because I would say Jarvis is probably controlling the flaps and those kind of things, and probably has his legs sort of, almost like welded together at this point, so he's going being in the straight direction, and his arms are what are really doing the work in terms of which direction he's going.
Right, because the flight stabilizers are his hands, so that he can kind of adjust them to help direct himself better. And I do think you're right. I mean, I think largely a lot of that is coming from Jarvis, as far as getting him straightened. If Jarvis needs to kind of lock that hip so it stops twitching or whatever, he can. I mean, it's a metal suit. He can kind of keep that pinned down so it's not going to cause any issues and move exactly when it needs to.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of smarts to it, and I think that it's worthy of a no prize. So kudos to you. Well, I don't have anything else for this minute. What about you?
Nope. No, that pretty much covers all my stuff. But yeah, we got there's some good stuff coming to the next one, and some foreshadowing. So
yes, it's going to be a good time. Well, where can people find you, Kyle?
I am the one of the main creative forces behind the Monday Matinee podcast. I write and direct most of the episodes, so you'll hear a lot less of my voice on those, which I'm sure some people would be very relieved on. We are currently on hiatus, but there's 2 years of stories that you can listen to now, and then we'll be coming back here in the spring once we get some of our. We're working on our own secret projects, so once we get those underway, then we'll be back to recording. But you can find us on Twitter or Facebook at Oxen Hair. I'm the Oxen Hair is because I have a partner who is my producer. So I do this kind of stuff where I talk and talk and talk, and he's the one who has to go through and listen and cut all the pieces out, which I pity him. So he's the ox and I'm the hare. So the two of us together are Oxen Hair. Ryan Fitzpatrick is his name, and he's brilliant, and I couldn't do anything without him.
Gotcha. And it's ox and hair,
yes,
not
ox and hair.
Oxen hair.
Right. That we talk about, because no matter which way you put them, if you say it fast, which I unfortunately have a habit of talking too fast, it could sound like something else. So it could sound like oxen hair, or it could sound like hair and ox. But no, it's ox and hair.
3 words. Three words. Well, thanks so much for joining me again, Kyle. I appreciate it.
Oh, having fun.
Well, everybody, that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Until next time, true believers.